Julie here with Sirius Talis Moon. This is Moon Hour again, Saturn Day. The moon is 17 degrees Libra. And yeah, how did we get to Moon Hour again? Midheaven is separating from the triple Mars Sun Venus, 1 degree orb conjunction. And Venus is in 21 degrees Capricorn, ruling the ascendant at 6 degrees Taurus. I want to talk about let's go check up with Iran because I was watching Krasi Tassio's videos, which I'm still binge watching all that I missed. Apparently, Saturn is invisible, and that is why I receive all this zeitgeist, which is basically spirit of the time, Saturn predictions. um, so there are many more things. Venus is invisible. I think Mars is still invisible. The sun is visible. The sun is visible. The sun goes invisible in eclipses. But yes, I say if I had a course and each course has complementary things to read, then it would be, well, Krasi's channel. So that would definitely be one of the things. Another thing that came up is limited access to things. Now, Saturn, the spirit of the entire episode, which will air next week, again, more consideration of time, Saturn. While we check up with, let's go see what's up with Iran, because apparently they exiled Khamenei. I don't know. Iran news. Um, it's interesting, you know. um, okay, son of Shah calls for city centers to be seized. Over 200 dead in Tehran as regime forces open fire on protesters 9 hours ago. Now, okay, I want to talk about Saturn limiting access to things, particularly in Aries. In Aries, if Saturn limits access to something, it means that people will have to come up with their own innovation. Okay, for example, in Iran, although Saturn is still in Pisces, Saturn limiting access to the internet. Okay, Neptune in Aquarius, for example, the onset of the internet. Saturn ruling Aquarius applying to conjoin Neptune, the fall of the internet, and there was a new solution reinstalled, I think by Elon Musk. So this is a part of what's going to happen with Saturn, okay? And that can be, with Saturn still in Jupiter, access to education. So let's say one of the things that the ritual abuse campaigns do is limit access to education. And what happens, I talked previously where I had to astrology for my life, and I'm not the only one, many people were facing that. And so what it does, it forces a person to basically either educate themselves or find an alternative to. For example, with Saturn, a lot of people can talk about the efficacy of the use of sanctions and embargoes. If you use sanctions and embargoes, do it like Donald Trump withdrew from NATO. Why? Donald Trump did not withdraw from NATO to collapse NATO. It withdrew from NATO for the European Union to invest in NATO, which of course grew the European Union wanting to invest in European weapon companies. Okay, so a sanction or embargo in the sense of, well, I withdraw my resources into so that one will develop their own sovereignty and resources is not a bad thing if they're, yes, if they not I withdraw all of the abilities to develop sovereignty, that's gaslighting, but let's say, I don't know, withdrawing investment in something that can and should be sovereign. Okay, for example, there are European weapon companies. So with Saturn, and it's probably going to affect Iran, we're going to see that, let's say there are all these many countries that want to deprive women of rights. So women are going to need new countries, and women are going to reinstall new countries. Women not participating in education, so women are going to have alternative academia. Okay, we had that with the church and the Templars trying to charge, okay, the clergy and the monarchies, which created partially also the encyclopedists, okay, the movement of the encyclopedia. Okay, encyclopedia, if you think about Wikipedia, is the analogy to the group of the encyclopedists, because Wikipedia is where we have a common access to the knowledge of the world. That was the concept of encyclopedia. You're in a stand house. You're in a stand house. We are the we are the people that basically document the knowledge, okay, particularly in Sagittarius, okay? We are the ones that document the knowledge in a way that is accessible to the common people. So, restriction of women in, let's say, religious societies, women growing their own individual religions. Restriction by the elite of an astrologer to do astrology without the rites and rituals that are pertaining to the elite, an astrologer doing astrology of ritual abuse, cloning projects, the elite. And delineating the entire thing, astrologically, of course. um, so, this is a part of what we are seeing and are going to see, where the collapse of certain things. Now, here people think, oh, it's going to be the collapse of certain things and some savior solution. A part of it with Neptune in Aries is going to be like that. But there are going to be many alternatives to that solution, particularly when that solution is not feasible. Medicine, 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 medicine at war. First frontier of the first frontiers of the first frontier of the first frontier, which means that we're going to have people that never learned any training, not even paramedic. What do we do if we have a situation where somebody needs first aid? No one, absolutely no one in the crowd knows either the language, first aid course. What do we do? That's a first frontier. We ad hoc try to think logically what can be done. Some of those are going to be epic fails. Some of those are going to be the innovation of tomorrow. Actually, since COVID, we had to innovate in medicine because the trust in both the conventional and the holistic system, okay, began to be declining. I hear even herbalists that to sustain their profession, they have to speak against invasive herbs. Now, I'm all for, let's say, using, incorporating in our day in energy. Okay, I'm not talking about herbalism, but let's say growing a rose together with the natural things, the amaranths and the mallows. Okay. Now, why? Because growing a rose gives us the dedication, the building of relation, that which takes our dedication and effort. The natural herbs are the thing that naturally grows. If we don't have them, then we don't have the ability, the energy to dedicate to growing a rose. If we don't have the rose, we basically are being nourished, but we don't put our energy into growing beauty. So, if you think about the raison d'etre of the garden, and this can also pertain to segments of rewilding and segments of garden architecture. As when it comes to the archetype of the woman, Venus, and again, Venus is invisible. I see it. I see now because we have all this really elated philosophical gnosis of Venus that we would otherwise not be exposed to. For me, it was Yasamin. And all these things that I was suddenly saying, like out of the blue, it's like, that's Venus invisible. That's the really psychic awareness of Venus that is higher than the mundane expressions of Venus. And I'm looking at a country, which we'll soon look at the chart again, of a country that is almost the epicenter of those feminine questions. Okay, people idealize the Shah. The Shah was already too religious. I know that from a book by a woman who survived, basically escaping Tehran during the revolution, the 1979 revolution. So, moving into Iran, you see violent protests. Israel official asked about Elon Musk's Starlink in Iran. Statements by the High Representative on behalf of the EU. Marco Rubio throws weight behind Iran protests. Well, Khamenei says anti-government protesters are vandals trying to please. It's vandalism o'clock. Let's see if I have chart of Khamenei. Iranian women light cigarettes on burning portraits of Ayatollah. Ouch. And here is something unusual, okay? We don't think of cigarette. If you think about the tobacco, what it took, there was a movie, I think, with Julia Roberts about the pollution also of tobacco companies and the time where we had to scientifically prove the tobacco causes cancer. Okay, I remember I was working in McDonald's as a high school student. When I was cleaning the dining room, yes? So I had to shut my face and so on because I was very sensitive to the smell. And I remember when that law came out that they cannot smoke in restaurants, I was like, oh my God. I said, Shirley, how come you were working in McDonald's? I said, this is exactly the juxtaposition that I was vegetarian. And and when they tried to push for me to be managerial, as they did to everyone that stayed there, I exposed the things. Let's just say, so I really trying to tell myself that yes, I can stand and this and I could. I was denying my disability, and so many things happened that forced me to acknowledge my disability, including my not having enough iron, so much that I ate basically breast chicken that does nothing for the iron, but but that, and it tasted like a body, and I still ate it because I was missing iron, and I did not know about veganism, not the natural crops that grow. Yesterday, for example, I did not eat meat. I did eat eggs, I think, or fish. And again, I don't know, good thing, bad thing. It's like we've been so dissociated from healthy soil that we don't even know if we can eat, if we should eat good meat or not. And thus we've been also so dissociated from um, basically unprocessed meat. Okay, meat the future and so on and so forth, which is powder, something that one could easily smuggle drugs in. Now, now we see cigarettes used in an unusual form as a symbol of revolution. Okay, that thing that took us, I don't know how many men and women, deaths on the altar to prove that this thing causes lung cancer. There's of course many other types of pollution. I mean the chemicals, which we are all subjected to. But this is now seeing cigarettes being used okay, as a protest tool. Why? I don't know. Is it the funding of some tobacco company? Like, in fact, one of my colleagues, when he did Talisman, that included tobacco, he was smoking, and when he learned to use a tobacco in healthy form, then he stopped smoking. Iran, UN human rights chief, deeply disturbed by protest-related violence. I thought that Khamenei was exiled. I don't know. Iran cuts internet. That was yesterday. Internet shut down. So no, they're attacking protesters. Pre-Islamic Revolution. X replaces Iran regime flag emoticon with pre-Islamic Revolution lion and sun flag. Again, the Shah was already too religious before the 1979 protest. Has it changed? We'll have to see. Can he provide for women's rights as per before the Islamization of the Shah? Okay, we'll have to see. And the Shah is a monarchy. We are the Pluto in Aquarius age. I said that 2-3 years ago when I was still on X. Okay, me and Elon Musk. Okay, me, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Melania Trump, Putin have, and I think even Mr. Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, okay, have all moon in naval nakshatra. So all of our creative endeavors clash. So I decided to try to not to be on X so that it would not create this clash. I respect X a lot, but this is why I'm not on X. Only reason, okay? I think it's an excellent platform, but this is just the only reason. And by the way, I think the cloning project is responsible for so many of us naval moon nakshatras being juxtaposed together all the time when we're not actually creatively compatible. Moon Aries square. um, Street protests grow in Iran. Reza Pahlavi calls for 2 more days of protests in Iran. Trump threatens US action, rules out sending troops. Primrose Palmer Control complete me on the complete me on the Again, it's not Trump's regime, it's regime. And I'm not anarchic, okay? What do I mean by I'm not anarchic? I mean that irrespectively of whether we choose anarchy or not, the current structure enabled that, and so it needs to be revised. Doctor says more than 200 reported dead again with the medicine. We don't know why. Jabbing at the jabs. In Tehran. Why are huge protests going in? What do you mean? Why? What do you mean? Why? Overwhelmed hospitals because of demonstrations. Do we see? Okay, I don't know where did that comment came that Khamenei was exiled, because I did not see that. But this does justify a good look at current Khamenei's chart. So I'll just write current Khamenei. Okay, so we have. Okay, so this is this the one? Because I remember there was, yes, it's this Gemini. So that's the Sol in Aries that I see all the time. I was going to pick up the Tissel yesterday, and there was this card, the social engineer that left the virtue card with the cross with Sol in Aries. Yes, I didn't know what do you mean by that, but I now understand the Sol in Aries that I've been hearing all the way through COVID. If that was the intention, so Sun Moon applying to new moon in Aries, Moon, another moon in Aries, Chiron going over moon of Alika Minai. Yes, we don't have ascendant. It means the moon could go all the way from Ravati to Ashvini Nakshatra. But the moon squares Pluto, and Pluto in transiting has been squaring Ali Khamenei's moon for quite some years. Also the other moons, also my Mercury, yes. Um, Pluto 29 degrees Cancer, which means that squaring the Sun, again polarizing figure. Jupiter. Those who know my chart try to ignore that now. Jupiter on my ascendant. Um, Venus 22 degrees Pisces. Yes, given Henry VIII. Trudy, I need you on this. Who is it clone of? Mercury 5 degrees Aries, Saturn 21 degrees Aries. Rahu 8 degrees Taurus, which means Ketu 8 degrees. No, Rahu 8 degrees Scorpio, which means Ketu 8 degrees Taurus. Uranus in Taurus. Showing my sun. And Neptune 21 degrees Virgo. Lilith. Pluto has ingressed to the Black Moon Lilith of Ali Khamenei. What does it mean? First of all, this Lilith. Because I heard news that maybe, fake news, maybe not, Ali Khamenei was exiled in Iran. I don't know, I don't see it in the news. But Pluto ingressing to conjoin Lilith for Ali Khamenei. Lilith is the sexually sovereign woman, and with Aquarius, it's about the sciences and her sovereignty, her ability to be both in academia and in the science of military. It accentuates the sovereignty of a woman in the sciences and the revolutionary sciences with Mars in Capricorn, revolutionary of the regime, and the bonds and the banking. Okay, basically, first of all, to be very honest, for a man chart is the woman that he is attracted to, but if he's not used to sovereign divinity, he could be afraid of. Okay, this means that those are the type of women that Ali Khamenei would be attracted to. Just okay. Lilith is your partner. Remember when I said Lilith is your partner? Lilith in Aquarius, it means that this man could be unexplainably attracted to women that are not just intellectual, scientifically revolutionary, and they could transform something about weapon trade, even can be the nuclear energy in Iran project. And Pluto going over this Lilith is him having to face that in some way. I don't know. This, well, this is a very supposedly personal, supposedly private. Pluto makes the personal political, because Pluto is a sign of Pluto is the sign of whatever Pluto goes through becomes a political issue. And this type of Lilith, that could be very, it could be very internal. I don't know even which house. It could be 8th house, it could be 12th house, it could be 10th house. But even though it could be completely something that's so intimate that even a person doesn't talk about this with themselves, but Pluto makes it something that's political. And this revolution in Iran, Iranian women are so connected with both the logos and the intuition. And this is exactly the typecast that he would be if he's straight. Then, well, he is elite. Then this is exactly the typecast of women he'd be attracted to. And this is exactly the type of women that his policies kill and exile. Pluto here, he has to face this. What do I mean he has to face this? One way or another, the political upheaval that is happening right now in his regime, he has to face directly that complete transformation around his chart that has to do with the equal woman that he is afraid of, or that he either is attracted to but afraid of, or that he is attracted to but his policies negate. And while this part in a person's chart is usually very intimate, this one is all out there. There is a revolution in Iran. People prefer a monarch over him. Also, the women, what's happening? What has he got against the women so much? That, and I hear from people, like Jasmine, that grew up in a matriarchy carrying Persian traditions. So what is it there? Now, Venus 22 Pisces, we don't have something activating this 22 Pisces now. We had in the eclipses, we had the first eclipses, we had Virgo Pisces. But unfortunately, he is associated with femicide, particularly for the religious clothes that women wear or don't wear. And now something happens in Iran where he has to face it, not on a Venus level. He's faced that before. Saturn went on Venus. That was the time where we talked about the femicide in Iran. We talked about the women singing, women clothing, women dancing, women this, being murdered for all that, for being women. And that has to do with beliefs. And also, both Venus and Jupiter are in the nakshatra that is very much associated with not being able to get away with. So what was done to women under Ali Khamenei will not be able to get away with. Like I said, I saw energy readers giving readings for people with placements in this nakshatra. When they had a reckoning, the face of the people that were giving the energy reading was not looking good. Okay, but it is also nakshatra where a person is able to make corrections. And so actually it is Ali Khamenei himself that is able, has the opportunity, has the ability to choose to correct himself, except that this Venus and Jupiter are opposing Neptune in Virgo, which means that he may have to surrender choice. Lo and behold, it could have been that he was, let's say, mind controlled, because Neptune in sign of Virgo can be hacking into nervous system. He has Mercury 5 degrees Aries, and he could have been mind controlled or extorted to do these policies because of something that could have happened with drugs. And that could have been him having to surrender the choice regarding policy towards women and still facing something that I cannot call a karmic reckoning because of the surrender component to that. And basically, Saturn was going over Jupiter and accentuating those upheavals in Iran that now are paramounting. And it's a time of reckoning. The most of the Saturn influence here he has already experienced. But now is coming from Pluto that activates the transit in Saturn. But Pluto is going over his Lilith, 3 degrees Pluto. Almost towards February, we're going to have Pluto going over his Lilith, which means that here he is going to be coming to a reckoning or exposure, or something is being composed, okay? Something is being tended to from the core in something is way more sensitive than what we saw previously. Saturn in Aries have to do with sexual sovereignty of women in science, regarding to weapon industry, innovation, of even infrastructure, because it's Capricorn, engineering, Aries is going over his moon, Chiron was going over his Saturn. So the wound around, for example, the infrastructures in Iran, okay, for example, there are many cities that are just sinking. Saturn is going within, so a form of, and Neptune in sign of cities, particularly around Al-Qaeda, is far from Al-Qaeda, but is around landslides. With Mercury, Aries, that can be all a composition where his Chiron, do I see his Chiron here? Because I think he would have a Lilith Chiron, but let's see if I see another picture of this chart. Chiron is going through Saturn now. Yes, we have some Chinese rabbit here. Life path number 9, which is completion. Birth number 1, which is the Solist. And name number 7, which actually has to do with karma. 33, again 33er, name 33, 6, 33, very associated with degree 33 of Mason. I have life path 33. I'm not Mason, okay, but they tried. In fact, I had a lot of ideation of Mason because it literally was all of the things that we could have exposed to in education, and one of the things that came around my Pluto square, Neptune square, is a reality check on the Masonry. The reason, by the way, the reason I did not join Masonry was because one had to keep things secret. There was a lot of women. Yes, I didn't dodge a bullet. I dodged an A-bomb in that. um, but because I did not want to keep a secret, because my view of the sciences is that they're not a secret thing, but something that the people need to be exposed to, which is a part of what I'm doing with this channel. So, yes. Chiron, 5 degrees Cancer. Chiron in the sign of relation, but also is Chiron, when for a leader, is Chiron in a wound around being a leader that is relatable to the people. By the way, with Aries going over his, yes, with Aries going over his moon and soon to be sun, the topic of LGBTQ protest in Iran was actually evident. Okay, so Aries is not connected to LGBTQ. It's just also connected to the rituals that create sometimes what seems like LGBTQ, that they also wanted to join a P for pedophilia. In fact, perhaps LGBTQ have a big problem with the elite because the elite uses that to create legitimacy for pedophilia, and LGBTQ people have been fighting a centuries-long fight to keep that apart so that they can have legitimacy. Now, here they denote, yes, we don't have particular time for his birth. This is a man that has gone through his Uranus opposition twice, is gone through his Pluto opposition. Okay, he's 86. Pluto, Pluto is now finalizing maybe the last degrees of his Pluto opposition. Here we have Lilith at 13 degrees. So my delineation is the same, but if it is 13 degrees and not 3 degrees, it means that he's subjected to go through this in a decade, although I don't see why that would be the first thing that would pop out with Pluto ingress to 3 degrees. So I tend to delineate that to 3 degrees, although 13 degrees could be possible, but then there would need to be a reason that I delineated that first. Lilith right now is in 0 degrees Sag, which is not a significant place. 2 degrees Sag, which is not significant placement for his chart. So unless he has midheaven or ascendant with Lilith, kind of like Epstein. Epstein has ascendant with Lilith, but since we would probably know if that was the case, yes. But this is, I think, yes, a Lilith 3 degrees, because there would be no reason for this to be the first thing that pops when Pluto ingresses 3 degree Aquarius. Again, I could be wrong, but I think it is so. Saturn ingress to Aries begins his both sadicity and Saturn return. Light a candle for support of emotional support for Kaminai. They say, Shirley, how come you say this? I say, I'm an astrologer, Falcon. Sadicity is one of the most difficult times of a person's chart, difficult transits. For example, he would have Sadicity 28 years ago. That would be around 1996-7. Then 28 years from that would, of course, be around 1979. That's astrology, Falcon. So now he's having another one. And again, when Saturn and Neptune were in Aries, we in Israel, bless you, we in Israel, let's just say, they gotta know. As Israelis, we felt Khamenei's Saturn return. There's a building in Soroka, the hospital, that went boom. Some families were lost, unfortunately. Aries is new and real estate, and Saturn is buildings, tall buildings, so the new tall buildings. Oh, there was also the one with the Kiryat, which is the Armée. Next was Rieli, which looks like the Trade Center, but with a triangle. Mind you, he has the degree of completion for his number. Year one, he's building foundation. For him, I don't know what year it is, but for us, for the world, is year one. So foundations. And yes, by the way, he's also been through his Neptune opposition. Not every day do I run into a chart of someone who's not a banker and lived all this long. Except for Kissinger, maybe. It is. um, yes, not all the charts are delineated publicly, but this is one is calling for more to say about this. Is it the end of Ali Khamenei's regime? I wouldn't be too quick to say that. Okay? Why? Well, definitely it can bring endings of some sort. His Sadhasati Saturn return was also the and he sustained more than a Saturn cycle. Also, if I take a look at the technology-based solutions that were offered for Iran, they are not coming from women's sovereignty honoring, which, by the way, make him still a good competitor to what they call techno-fascism. No, I'm not wrong. Honor women's rights or resist or deal with the fact that you could be losing to Ali Khamenei. He's been there longer. He's sustained through now 2 Saturn cycles. You want to replace Khamenei, show us that you actually honor women's rights. Is Ali Khamenei not a good competition to those tech moguls that want to have uneducated women so that they will forcibly be raped to continue the lineage of men and so on? So no, it's a great competition to that. Are they better than Ali Khamenei? Am I for Ali Khamenei's regime? No. The Shah was already getting too religious before Ali Khamenei rise. When the Shah was getting too religious, Ali Khamenei said, I'm a bigger Mughal. If you want to have an Ayatollah in Iran, then there is an Ayatollah. Now, United States, never mind. I said what I said. No, seriously, the ICE having to defend itself from an unarmed woman in her car in Minnesota. You want to tell me that the closing policing of Ali Khamenei couldn't do better tyranny? Now, what does it do? It pushes women to further matriarchy. The only regime that sustained in Afghanistan was a matriarchal community. So it pushes women even more. That's, Uranus is still in Taurus. And he has Uranus in Taurus. It's basically radicalization of women. So it was both femicide, and women saw that if they are going to cut too much slack for men, they are going to be cut off as well and basically die. So women, they either had to join a matriarchy society in Persia or something, or they had to flee Persia. Now, were women under the Shah regime not trafficked? Okay, what happened in Israel when there was some revolution where bus drivers didn't let women that are wearing normal T-shirts to go on the bus because it was considered immodest. I don't know what happened. Geen herinnering aan, but we began to have more women drivers, let's say. Now, um, let's look at chart of Iran again. So Iran having moon 28 degrees Taurus. Again, we're talking about the April Fool's Day Iran, which is which is the revolution, 1979. Jupiter is where the Pluto of Khamenei is. So basically, Jupiter was crossing his Pluto. Lilith, 25 degrees Leo. Sun in Aries, exalted. Again, Iran, Sun exalted means that leaders very much identified with the identity of the state. Mars conjoining his Jupiter and Mercury as well. Now, I looked at this chart a couple of days ago, but now we have some news, I guess. Uranus in opposition to the Uranus of Khamenei. Basically, around his Uranus opposition, it was the revolution, and he called the regime. Midheaven, 0 degree Libra. Pluto, 18 degree Libra. Yes, toxic power relations with women. Venus in Pisces. I'm not going to say that joke again. Um, Venus exalted in Pisces, which can give us psychic women, spiritual women. Jupiter again. Why now? That's the question. First of all, Saturn, Neptune going over Mercury of the country and Mars, which is the seventh house, that is civil war clock, that also pertains to polarization around the international relations of Iran. And where is the civil war located? Is fourth house, which is the people. So basically the diplomatic relations of Iran and other countries are subject to polarization of the people, particularly around their beliefs. And the people, some of them may think Iran is too religious. Okay, basically the chart. Saturn, Mercury sign means the people want to stop being so religious. Okay, secularization. Saturn in Jupiter sign. Jupiter is belief and faith. Saturn is delays, restriction, creating either extreme orthodoxy or secularization. Now, Ketu in Pisces, Rahu in the 10th house. They're having basically Rahu Ketu reversal, which can be replacing a leader. Rahu in Pisces, again accentuating this Jupiter. Saturn in Virgo. A lot of fortune on Spica, which is ascendant of Israel, fated events to do with Israel, which also means that Israel is affected by fated events in Iran. As we've seen, they fight each other and we have buildings falling. And so I'm not going to talk about the cult-like versus Israel. Is Israel sovereign in the face of Israel? It's another question. But we're talking about Iran now. So definitely we have this move of Neptune, the eclipses cycle, and that's triggering Uranus in the 6th house with Venus in the 4th house. So revolution regarding women, again triggering the topic. Is Musk supporting women revolution? I don't know. Uranus is adjacent to the moon, which is the people, so the people revolting against some religious segments of the people, basically, which are represented by the Pluto of Gemini. So Neptune we covered. Pluto activating Saturn, so that can be transformation of the leadership. Okay, Saturn in the 10th house, but that's been since 2008. So we had sanctions on Iran and so on and so forth. Transformations regarding the sanctions and limitations on the leadership, Saturn limitation. There could be some attempt to, the world is going through a due diligence with Saturn Neptune, so they can be trying to collect the debt from Iranian government, which can cause a crisis or transformation, or there can be a debt crisis that pertains to leadership or transforms or change the restrictions. It can also be replacement of the leadership, transforming the rules and regulations around Iran. For example, credit score is associated with Saturn. Or they might stabilize credit score if they transform the regime, for example. Okay, for Israel, for example, the Saturn is in sign of the leaders, and Israel's credit score to do with the petrol gold standard. Yes, but we're talking about Iran. So Neptune we covered, Uranus we covered, Pluto we covered. Now, those are the big trees. Aries is not making a significant change. Here she would be in Taurus. Nay, here she would be she would be in Aries, probably around the middle decan. Yes, we're not dealing with an Aries Sun conjunction, I believe. Or maybe we are. And that would be leaders of the elite. But then transit in Aries is not triggering anything in particular. And Aries has been in a century there, of course, changing notions around masculinity. And Mars in Pisces here would be faiths about masculinity, military activity, intelligence, wars. But that would have been a century. So people might call the Aries in Aries century a century of wars and upheavals, even though we thought that we live in a century of peace. More impressive things. 2030 is going to be on the axis of the ascendant and seventh house, which means that Iran will be directly affected by the upcoming ingress of Uranus into Gemini, and it will transform its international relations and identity of the country, a la United States. Not unlike United States, also the eclipse in Saturn in Pisces, the note of, unfortunately here, mass death of the people, which is happening both in US and in Iran right now. While we from outside, even I as in Israel, treated it lightheartedly because of like, oh, the Iranians are Iranian, okay, because we know Iranian people are very, very not self-oriented, not in some terms of selfish. They're very independent, and the Iranian mentality is a lot about live and let live. From what we know, let's say, of the women, and it's a very liberal mentality. Okay, this is why the revolution was so devastating. And so when I, as Israel, hear, oh, the Iranians are rebelling the regime, I'm like, yes, normal. This is that's Iranians do Iranian. But we see mass death that, for example, until I looked as astrologer at the chart, I even idealized. I thought, okay, they're turning out, they're Gen Z, the regime. It's kind of like, well, obviously, but this is also. Yes, and this is also not really being aware of the mass death that entails, um, and basically underestimating the toll that it takes on the people to transform Ayatollah regime. Okay, let's see, hospitals overwhelmed, 200 deaths in one day, basically. Regime bombing the civilians, and so, yes,